I did watch the WWE Network 24 special they did on Trish Stratus. If you didn't see it, if you didn't even know about it, it does exist, and it's very well done. I would recommend that everybody check it out. They have a lot of material and background on Trish first coming to WWE, and if you don't know her story, she was going to school or going to go to school to become a doctor, and there was a huge strike at the time, and so it's amazing how you look back on these things, and it's just one little event that happens could change the course of someone's life. She would have gone on to become a doctor, and that's what would have been her lot in life. But there was a strike that was happening at the time, and so she had to work, and she ended up becoming a fitness model. She had always been a wrestling fan, but she was a fitness model, and she became very well known up in Canada. She ended up appearing on TV. Michael Landsberg had his show, and one thing led to another, and she was invited, said, hey, would you want to become a wrestler? And that was it. It was off to the races. She went to school to start training to become a wrestler. She went to WWE. And it just takes you through the early part of her career. She came in and she was a pretty face. She was eye candy. She was a valet for TNA, for Test and Albert, not Dixie's promotion. And that was her, and she was this just beautiful, buxom blonde who Vince McMahon, of course, made sure he did a storyline with, and he was slipping his tongue down her throat right in front of his wife when his wife was comatose and catatonic in a wheelchair. Vince McMahon was sure to make sure that he booked himself to be swapping spit on TV with Trish Stratus, which in a way, I mean, on the one hand, can you blame the guy? On the other hand, what a creepy fucker this guy is. But she went on to become one of the best women's wrestlers that they've ever had in that company. And they focused a lot on the match that she had, the main event, the first women's main event. Well, actually, it wasn't the first. It was not the first women's main event on Raw in December of 2004. There was a Raw main event in 2000, I want to say before SummerSlam, where Lita won the women's title from Stephanie McMahon. I think The Rock maybe was the guest referee. So the men were involved. It wasn't like a straight women's match. That technically, though, I think would be the first women's main event on Raw. But, in 2004, there was this big match with Trish, who was wearing the face mask. I think she had a broken nose, against Lita. Lita did that horrific dive out of the ring where she may have broken her neck in that match, actually. That may have been where she initially hurt herself. Just a horrible landing that was. But the match went on, and she won the championship, and it was this great big moment, and they take you through to Trish's retirement in 2006. Her mom was sick. She had been diagnosed with cancer, and she wanted to make sure she could spend more time at home with her and taking care of her. And that, as much as anything, is why she retired in 2006. And she had a retirement unlike almost anybody in WWE, because not only were they in her hometown of Toronto, she wrestled her final match in her hometown, and she won the championship. That's how much they valued Trish and thought, well, what a great story this would be. How many times do you see people just winning in their hometown, let alone going out winning a championship in their retirement match? That just doesn't happen. And that was supposed to be it. And of course, she came back and she wrestled a few tag matches here and there. And I remember a tag match on TV once with John Cena. And there was that one year at WrestleMania with Snooki and all that. And Morrison was very cold to her. That was a whole story. John Morrison was just very, very cold to her, I think, because he felt as though Trish kind of took a spot away from... was it Melina? Melina was dating Morrison at the time, right? I think so, if I have my timeline accurate. But yeah, there was definitely some... not from Trish's side, but there was definitely some heat from Morrison's side towards Trish. He was very cold to her in that match. But then, she came back this year, SummerSlam. In Toronto, came back for one last match against Charlotte Flair. It was the battle of, who's the greatest women's champion of all time. It was this great build to what turned out to be a very good match. Trish came back. She was a little rusty at first, but the match ended up being very good. I thought she looked great for somebody who hasn't really done this for so long, aside from a few matches here and there. She had tagged with Lita at the Evolution pay-per-view last year, but she hadn't really done a singles match. And she went in there and she didn't embarrass herself at all. She had a great match and another great send-off in her hometown. And she got to put somebody else over. And anyway, so it's a great documentary. And you see her family and talks about her yoga studio that she started. And and all of that. But here's the question I would pose to you. I think this is an interesting question. And I've thought about this. I think that Trish, you see the improvement that she made from when she first came in to what she became as far as a wrestler, as far as a worker. And, in 2006, at WrestleMania that year, and as far as feuds and programs that year, the stuff with her and Mickie James I thought was fantastic. Just the story and then the match that they had, it was great. But I look back on Trish's career and all this talk about her being one of the best of all time. And how much of that do you think is amplified by the fact that a lot of the women back then were not the caliber of the women that you see today? There's definitely more of a focus today on the in-ring with the women. It's not just about them going out there and half naked and it's just eye candy and, they could do a few moves. They have a lot of really talented women right now, and a lot of them are down in NXT. And I've said this before, that the women's division they have at the moment in NXT, if it isn't the strongest that has ever been in this country, I always leave Japan out of this because Japan has some of the toughest women you'll ever see, then it's definitely top 3 at any given moment as far as any women's division, I would argue, in any company anywhere. They have a lot of really talented women in this company right now, and who can go out there and deliver quality matches that you would expect, long matches even, that you would see traditionally out of the men, and very talented. You didn't have that in the mid to late 2000s, not to the degree that you have now. And there were talented women on that roster, don't get me wrong. They had Victoria, and they had Molly, and even somebody like Candice Michelle. She's another great example of somebody who came in, sex appeal and all that, but over time, I give her a lot of credit. She trained her ass off, and she became a pretty damn good wrestler by the end there. So she's another example of somebody who worked and worked and worked and trained and actually became a very competent in-ring performer. But the quality now, as compared to then, is just, like tenfold greater. If Trish came along now, Trish at her peak, when people were saying about her, she's this great women's wrestler and she's doing the Matrix move and all this different stuff. If Trish came along now in the age of Sasha and Charlotte and Becky and Natty, and then you put the NXT women in there, would Trish be as revered as she is? Or did she benefit from coming along at a time when, frankly, the quality of the women's division was not nearly what it is today? I'm not saying that to try to take anything away or diminish what she did, but I think it's an interesting question. Where do people stand on that? I think she definitely benefited, but that doesn't take away from the fact that she's still a very good wrestler. But did she, is her legacy sort of amplified because of it? Because of when she came along? Yes, I think it was. But you guys can chime in and let me know what you think.